All right, guys, we are here with another great day for Yu-Gi-Oh! And we are looking at a feature match from the first round of locals last night, in which the lovely Dank Ritual playmat that I just reviewed in one of my most recent videos is being put into the prize pool. Everyone got to enter this tournament and play, and one of the prizes was this playmat, which is pretty cool. So as you can see on the left-hand side, we do have Adagnister, and on the right-hand side, we have Swordsoul. So we're going to start seeing the Adagnister player pop off here, and he's doing... I can't remember all these names. I know one of them's... I think it's... the yellow one is Picari, and the red one is a Chi-Chi. But you see him add, I think that's AI Contact or something like that. And he has the Link 1. I can't remember. I think it's Dark Infant or Dark Infantry, something like that. But a link into a Splash Mage here, and the island is active, using it to summon, I believe that's Bururu. And Bururu is going to use this effect to dump, which usually sends the Danmari. And we do see the Danmari get dumped to the grave. Now, I didn't play in this tournament. I opted to just do all of the recording, and I sat by both players during the feature matches that I did record, which was pretty fun for me. I got to watch everything happen. I didn't see a reason to play in a tournament where one of the prizes is something that I was donating into the prize pool. It seemed a little weird to do that. But now we see a link summon happening for Transcode Talker. The Transcode will revive the Splash Mage. And after that happens, we're going to see a link for the Link 6. I think it's at Arrival or something like that, or whatever it's called, Arrival. And now we're going to see a draw 3 here, which is pretty darn good. I mean, this deck is actually like a lot of fun. I always kind of forget how much fun it is to play Adagnister, because it really just, keeps going and going. It's similar to Pearly, where you're setting up like a Towers deck, which is, in my opinion, it's a lot more fun than Pearly, but that's just me. I think the Pearly artwork is just trash. Very biased opinion, though. But we see a Feather Duster coming down from the Swordsoul player, which is going to wipe out the field spell and 2 set imperms. Now we see an Ashina being special summoned from the hand. And he thinks for a minute here, and he plays a Monk, which is pretty standard, pretty par for course, nothing out of the ordinary there. Yeah, I believe the Adagnister player asked if it banishes for cost, which it does. Now we are going to see the normal summon of Ecclesia, and then the Ecclesia effect. And it looks like we're going to drop down a Moyi. Moyi is going to reveal, I believe that was a long Yuan. I know I speed the videos up so this, doesn't take forever. But he uses the Danmari to negate the Moyi, which is pretty darn good, not going to lie. That's a pretty sweet play. However, we see the Swordsoul player does have Dragon Circle, which is definitely going to change everything here, because now pretty much everything's going to resolve the way that the Swordsoul player wants it to. You can get to tribute the Moye, and you get the search here. I know he went through his deck a couple times trying to find the card he was looking for, so I kind of just cut the video to where he did grab the card, because he was playing a little bit slow. I know I gave them both, just like a heads up, like, hey, this amount of time is left on the round and things like that, just to try and, make sure that the gameplay was moving at a solid pace. But we see that he added the Adhara, which was special summoned, and the Moyi does resolve because he chained the circle to the Danmari. So that's going to still make it so that the token hits the board. And from this point, you can see that he's thinking again, just checking the Adhara, which there's definitely a pretty solid line here. That token is a level 4 tuner, which is pretty important to note, because that does end up being fairly relevant. So we see a link now for another Monk with the Adhara, and then Adhara is going to banish to add the Ashina back. And because the Ashina was banished off of DD Crow earlier, it hasn't used its effect yet. So he can banish it from hand as well. And then he summons the Shithana. The Shithana and the token will end up making a Chi-Jiao. So that's actually, you know, obviously important to note, because now you've got the Chi-Jiao on board, which is going to search you one of your Swordsoul cards. So we're going to see him think about this for a minute. And he's going to grab, I think he grabbed Emergence if I remember correctly. Yeah, so he grabs Emergence there, which is cool. The Emergence now will be activated to add the Vishuddha, which you can do because he controls the Synchro there. And then he's going to Long Yuan pitch the Vishuddha, which is pretty darn good. And he's just checking the Vishuddha real quick and reading it. Then he's going to Synchro for the level 10 Cheng Ying. Now, he does forget to do the Long Yuan burn here, which was kind of surprising. He didn't declare it, but I feel like he was newer to the deck, because I feel like there were a few things that he did where I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting line. But the Cheng Ying does technically have more attack right now, so it swings over the Arrival, and then he just pokes in for some additional damage with, you know, the Monks and the Chi-Jiao. And from there, I think he passes. Yep, right back to Adagnister. And we're gonna see. Let's see. Oh, I just realized the Swordsoul player offered a cut because he hadn't offered a cut yet that turn, and he had gone in a few times. So now we see a Chi-Chi come down. Now I don't remember the name of the water one. Yeah, I can't remember, but I know it like special summons itself from hand or something if you control another Adagnister. So now the infantry comes down, and he's going to get a search for Island. Obviously, the field spell for this deck is crazy good. And then the Island gets activated. Pretty solid. And from here, he's going to use the Chi-Jiao, I believe. And he banishes the Emergence to banish the Infant. And when that happens, he's also going to be able to use like the Cheng Ying to banish the Island. And I believe he gets to banish a card from grave as well. So he banishes the Picari. Oh, I'm sorry, the Chi-Jiao actually negated the Infant. I said banish, it doesn't do that. I just realized that I said that incorrectly. But now we see the water getting special summoned, and then we see the Thrust now searching. Thrust searching can be really good. And honestly, even if you're searching for one of like your AI cards in the Adagnister deck, like a lot of those normal spell AI cards are actually really good, and they can enable whether it's OTKs or just extensions to put up a crazy board. There's a lot of potential that you can really go, which is, you know, obviously important. But now we see Splash Mage coming down. And he is going to revive the Bururu, it looks like, with the Splash Mage. And he added, I believe that's I Meet You, was the one that he added off of Thrust. So he's going to activate it. And he reveals a Transcode Talker, which is an Earth. So he's going to be able to grab the Earth. I believe that's like Gachi or something Gachi. It can special summon itself, which is pretty good. Just another body on board, which obviously in this deck is pretty much everything. I mean, you get bodies on board and you're just off to the races. But he's going to go transcode, and now he's going to bring back the Splash Mage, and now he makes an access code. So he's going to get the gain here. And then the Earth Adagnister basically makes it so the access code is like a towers for the turn, like it's unaffected by your opponent's card effects pretty much. Now he's going to attempt to pop the Cheng Ying, which avoids the destruction. And I believe Cheng Ying, you can just dodge destruction as many times as possible by card effect like that. So then he decides to pop the Chi Jiao after realizing that. And then the access code attacks over the Cheng Ying because it is still higher attack stats. So they do the math here. You see he's down to, I believe that says 6,800. And then the Splash Mage kills one of the monks, which puts him down to 67. So 2,900 to 6,700 right now. And this is actually pretty back and forth. I would say that this is not like overly favored in one player's particular favor. Like it's fairly even, which is cool. But he's just reading the Earth Adignister. That way he can make sure that he understands exactly what it does. I haven't played Adignister in probably over a year, so I genuinely don't remember what much of the cards do. So I would have to read them too if I was playing the match. No real big rulings came up while they were playing, so I didn't have to worry about checking very many things, if anything at all. But that's always a plus. But we're seeing now that Swordsoul didn't have a good turn, so they had to pass back to Adignister, and now Access Code is popping the set card, which is an imperm, and then he banishes again to pop the monk, which is going to, unfortunately for the Adignister player, trigger the Shathana to bring back the monk, and now the access code is affected by card effects, so it gets popped and destroyed. But then the Picari gets normal summoned, and we're just still playing the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is crazy. Deck's really, really cool. I love all the Cyberse decks. You know, I genuinely enjoy them. I think they're just very, very fun to play. And the theme behind most of them of just doing a bunch of link summoning is something that I thoroughly enjoy. But now we see I think that's AI Reborn or Idol Reborn brought back the Achichi, and the Achichi I believe searched. And then we see an infant coming down on the board, which grabs the island. Activate the island, and now we're going to link again. There's a Splash Mage, and then the island is going to special Picari, and then Splash Mage, I believe, is going to revive here, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Splash Mage revives, and then I think the Earth one can special summon itself somehow. I don't know how. I actually never played that Earth one. I played I think that one's Earth anyways. Maybe it's Light. I don't know. But I never played that one. I just never saw a use for playing it. But clearly it came up here, which is, you know, pretty good and helpful in the situation. But now we're seeing, I believe that's Cyberse, like Quantum Dragon or something like that. I always played Wind Pegasus, so seeing this card come down is weird for me. But hey, what do I really know? I haven't played the deck in forever, so my opinion isn't as important as someone who's actually playing the deck right now. But now we see a Heat Soul coming down, so this is still, at this point, it still is somewhat back and forth, but it is really leaning towards being in the favor of our Adignister player. It seems like they're just kind of off to a start that's going to significantly benefit them. And he sets a card and passes. So now I believe the Swordsoul player has an evenly in hand, so they're going to end up going battle. He's just checking to see what he has, and he's realizing that he banished the Heavenly Circle off of the Cheng Ying to avoid destruction, and it would have been helpful to have in like prior turns. So I think he just realized that he could have done something like a turn prior, and it would have been really good for him. It happens. Misplays are going to happen, but that is perfectly fine. We're all here to learn how to play better and do things perfectly as much as possible. But we do see that evenly coming down that I was mentioning earlier, and he keeps the Quantum Dragon. And keep in mind, it is 900 to 1400. So it's a pretty close game. And then he just goes battle and swings, and we're going to be going to game 2 with Adagnister taking game 1. So now, moving into game 2, we are going to see Swordsoul go first. And he's taking a look at that opening hand, trying to figure out what route he wants to go. And it looks like he's got a Tenyi there that he's thinking about summoning. Or no, he's got a Desires. All right, so we're starting with the Desires, which in Swordsoul can really net you a lot of advantage sometimes, which is, what you're looking for with the deck. You're just trying to kind of out-resource your opponent, and that usually kind of gets you pretty far with Swordsoul. That's one of the things that I do really like about Swordsoul, is that if you're really good at maintaining card advantage and just really good with card economy, the deck does reward you fairly well. You just have to be good at those things. But now we see an Ashina coming down onto the board, and that turns into a Monk fairly quickly. And now he's just pondering his next move. And he's got a good amount of cards in hand, so he's probably got some things to think about. And there's a Vishuddha reveal. All right, pretty good. And now he's looking at Ashina. Ashina's effect is going to go off. Probably going for an Adhara here if I were to guess. Yep, there's the Adhara. And now we're going to Synchro Summon. Once again, just thinking. There's the Chi-Jiao. Chi-Jiao effect is going to activate, and that does get met with a Ghost Ogre. So that's, obviously pretty good. It does get a monster off the field, which is important. And now we're going to see some sort of search here for something, because the Chi-Jiao is still going to resolve. That's pretty important to note. If Chi-Jiao didn't resolve, then Ghost Ogre would have just been like the best card possible at that point. But we see him going through his deck, thinking about choices, and he goes with Emergence. And we're going to see the Emergence activate here. That is a Taya, I believe. And the Taya touches down, and I believe he uses the effect here, if I'm correct. Just kind of thinking about things. He's got a few things that he can banish, so, you kind of want to choose the correct card. Emergence isn't a bad choice at this point in the game, to be honest. I'd probably get rid of the Emergence. He goes with the Chi-Jiao, which to me is odd, because if you play Shaman, you can bring it back. It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it does. But now a Synchro Summon. And that is a Berserker. And then the Taya is going to activate. And you can see the Adagnister player just had to read that Draco Berserker real quick. Draco Berserker is a really good card. I really love that card. Like, it's honestly a really solid level 8 synchro monster. If it were around years ago, it would obviously have gotten banned. Like, imagine that card in Edison. Card's crazy. Absolutely crazy. But we see now he's just deciding what to dump. I believe, if I remember correct, he dumps Long Yuan. I think he has another Long Yuan in hand, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that was game 1. I can't fully remember. But just doing, looks like one more check to see if there's anything that he would like to dump differently. This is one of the things that I did notice, is that he was playing a little on the slow side, and he kept having like go through stuff. This is like a local, so it's not like a gigantic deal. But if you're playing like premier events, you obviously have to keep up like a good pace, and his was a little slower than it should have been. So, you know, it is local, so this is kind of where you go to learn. But then you see draw phase, an anti-spell is flipped on the Adagnister player's turn, and they just scoop it up. I believe he had 3 spells in hand, and none of them were really going to assist him because the anti-spell was active. But now going into game number 3. We're going to see Adagnister go first, mining, pitch mining, and grab the Achichi. This deck is so much fun because you just need one card to do a full combo pretty much. So the Achichi is going to activate. I believe it's going to grab the Picari like it usually does. Yep, there's the Picari. Now we're going to see the standard like go into Infant and search for the island. Oh, you dropped the thrust there on accident, but adds the island and activates the island, and then it's going to use the effect to special Picari. Picari effect will trigger to search. And we see I Meet You added to hand. Activates the I Meet You. And reveals, I think that was Templar, Dark Templar, which is going to grab him a copy of Doyon probably. Yep, there's the Doyon. And then from here, we see a Link Summon, probably for like a Splash Mage. That's kind of the standard. Oh, Cyber's Wicked. Okay, because he doesn't have the Baruru. That makes sense. Specials the Doyon with the Island. That'll trigger the Wicked. Banishes an Infantry on top of the Doyon, adding a card back. And now he adds the Baruru to hand. Pretty darn good. Link Summon for Transcode. Island effect, summon the Achichi. And then the effect of Transcode to revive the Cyber's Wicked. Then we see the Link Summon here for Templar. Island is going to special summon the Baruru, which is going to then dump probably Danmari again. Yep, there is the Danmari. That's pretty good. Then a Link Summon, we're going to see the Infant hit. So the Templar will be 1, Infant will be 2. Infant gets moved over, and then basically he gets to just reborn 3. It's like a soul charge. There's 1, 2 for the Quantum Dragon. Pretty good. That'll trigger, I think it's the Baruru, or no, it's the Baruru that summons back the Picari from grave, and now he goes for a 6 for Arrival. That's going to have 4k attack. This is a really, really strong board, believe it or not. Like, that's actually really solid. Super difficult to play through something like that. And from there we see the pass. Now we're on a Swordsoul, and the Swordsoul player, he like threw his hands on his face. He had to like think about this for a second. The card that he drew for turn was actually a Nibiru, so it's like, oh man, if he had it earlier, that would have been great. But now we see a Vashuda specialed onto the field. And he's probably going to go into a Monk here. That would obviously make the most sense. But once again, he, you know, really kind of taking his time, taking into consideration that I do speed these videos up. But he specials the Ecclesia out, which is good. But yeah, I do speed these videos up for commentary purposes, because if not, it would take a long time to commentate over them, and people would lose their interest significantly more quickly. So specials the Ecclesia, and they are, you know, in game 3, but they are getting closer and closer to time being called, which I did warn them about a few times, and they're like dangerously close to time being called. So that's going to definitely, you know, come into play and possibly be a factor if the game goes the way that it currently is. Now we see a Taya hitting the board. And he's just thinking about what to do here. Now he's got another card in hand. There's the Moe. He's going to activate the Moe effect, which you're going to get hit with Danmari. It's an okay hit, I guess. So now the Moe doesn't summon a token, but he's still got the Taya, which can banish the Vashuda. So I don't think it makes that much of a difference. All right, so now he's definitely like, all right, I think the tie is the way to go, you know, and that's probably the correct line. Yep, banishes the Vishuda for the Taya. Gets a token. And probably a Synchro Summon coming down here soon. He's just checking to make sure that the Danmari's negation does not carry over to the graveyard, which I do not believe it does. So probably a Synchro coming in soon. Yep, there we go. And at this point, time is called in the round. So the Chi-Zhao is Chainlink 1, Moe is Chainlink 2. He's going to get to draw a card. He offers a cut because he has gone in and searched, I believe. So he draws a card and then searches. And he's going to grab a Long Yuan, which is really going to secure the game because you can do the burn. So he's just showing that he drew Nib for turn. But yeah, the Ad Ignister player scooped because Swordsoul can burn. And that is round 1 with Swordsoul taking it.